You're listening to the Flickcast, the podcast about stuff nerds love. I am Chris Ulrich, and joining me, of course, Joe Dilworth. Hey, Joe, how you doing?
I'm great. We made it. It's the end of the year, and we got here. And I think, other than 1 or 2 weeks, maybe we had a
I
full
know, it's
year of
very exciting.
episodes too.
I'm patting myself on the back right now. You can't see me, but I'm doing it. It's
Me
great, and this is
too.
going to
Me
be a great
too.
episode. It's going to be a big one because our friend Rick Marshall is joining us from Digital Trends. I've known Rick a long time, but it's just he's going to give us some more insight. But we're going to talk about our favorite sort of / best of 2021 movies, TV stuff. It's going to be, like I said, a big episode. So settle in with your favorite beverage and listen as we get into it. All right, well, we're going to go and do our top things of 2021. We're going to kind of go around the room here with our guest, Rick Marshall. And we're going to talk about films, and we're going to talk about TV, and we're going to talk about maybe get some books or something, because I'm sure at least one of us read a book this year, maybe. I don't know, I did. And we'll just go around the room and do that. People can pick their best stuff, and then the rest of us can talk bad about it maybe, or agree with it, and we'll see how it goes. But it's kind of a free format. So let's give that a try. So we're going to give Rick a chance to go first, right? Okay. That sounds
Yes.
like a good idea. All right, Rick, lay it on us.
Well, I'm going to go for the low-hanging fruit here. One of my favorite films of the year was one of the only films that I saw in a theater, but it was well worth it. Dune. I absolutely loved it. I think the last time I was on talking with you here, I was raving about, how much I was looking forward to this and how excited I was, and it somehow managed to live up to, all of those very high expectations for it. I mean, I love the visual effects, love the performances, I love the tone and the atmosphere and the performances of everyone in it for the most part. And yeah, I had no complaints about it, and that's kind of amazing because it's a movie that was made to be sort of picked apart, or finding things that might not have lived up to what you hoped for from the book, or you were looking forward to this part, but it didn't quite live up to it. But I loved it. I love the pacing of it, and I love the idea of what could be coming next.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you on that. It was pretty amazing. We talked about it on here about how kind of good luck to everyone involved living up to the book. And I don't think it was too high a bar to anticipate that they might do a step better than David Lynch did back in the day. But yeah, no, I loved it. It was pretty fantastic. Chris,
I think that we're all going to be in agreement on this one, because I do agree. It was an amazing film, and I was frankly pretty nervous about it because there had been a lot of hype and there had been a lot of build up. And also, I mean, I'll be honest, disappointed that I couldn't go see it in the theater. I just wasn't willing to risk it. I mean, maybe I will now that it's back in IMAX, or when it finally comes out in IMAX. But yeah, I was worried, because I'm not disappointed by the David Lynch version, but it was kind of almost campy in a way. I mean, it has its fans, and I don't hate it. It just, it's not my favorite adaptation. And of course, it's not it's not a super close adaptation of the book, much like the new one is. But it was just so well done, so visually stunning, and I'm very excited about what's going to happen with the next one. Hopefully we'll get that soon, but I know it's not going to be for like 1,000 years, but still. Oh well.
It's funny. I ended up watching the David Lynch one, rewatching it not too long before I saw the new one. Just to find out, does my memory of it live up to what it actually is? Or, how like we spend so long just ripping on either some sort of project, and then sometimes maybe it isn't as bad as you remember. And I watched it, and you know what? The David Lynch one wasn't as terrible as I sort of remembered it. And there were a few things that I thought it actually did really well, and it took some gambles that I think the Villanueva movie wasn't willing to take, which I thought was interesting, because David Lynch went really he went all in on those like mutant navigator guy things.
Oh yeah.
And like the mutated navigators, and he right in the first 10 minutes that's going on.
Well, yeah.
No, I would agree with that. That where he, I think, like you said, really nailed it was the visual, doing something different, making it feel like, this isn't, Earth, that this is, these guys have been mutated, and it just visually looked great. I would say there's nothing that David Lynch has done that looks drab. Um, it was just kind of, it got weird in some places.
It got unintentionally
Yeah,
graphic.
very
I
weird.
think there was a little bit too much torture and bloodletting, maybe. But the Baron's a bad guy,
Yeah.
so he has heart plugs for everyone and whatever. So anyway, I watched something recently about the David Lynch version about the visual effects and how they had done a bunch of stuff because obviously there was no CG back then. Some of the things they did with like miniatures and forced perspective was like amazing. It's like some of the best. The visual effects guys were talking about how good it looked for the times. I mean, some of it was crap, like the Thopters and stuff. They couldn't do the wings like in the new version, which, by the way, is one of the greatest visual effects I think in the entire movie. Those Thopters is so cool.
Yes, it is.
Oh, I love those ships.
But yeah, it's just the stuff they did. It was very innovative in a way. It was just it's just. I don't know. It's very Lynchian. I mean, it's David Lynch's Dune. It's not Dune. It's like, if he'd done Star Wars, that would have been interesting too. But yeah, it's not as bad as I remember. It's just not fantastic. Although I was thinking as I was watching the new version, it's like, where's Sting? Sting should show up, but he didn't. So anyway, maybe
he should have,
or maybe in the next one. Who knows? But anyway, all right. Well,
it was just the pacing of it, though, I thought was really interesting too, because it got to the point. I don't know if you guys felt this too while you're watching the movie. You're like, I know there's a lot more of this story left, and you start kind of wondering what point coming up is going to be that finale point. Like, where are they going to cut off this chapter? And I found that kind of interesting as I'm watching it, trying to predict where this first movie is going to end. And I thought it was an interesting choice to end it where they did, because it didn't really feel like a chapter end in the Villeneuve one. It didn't feel like a chapter end. It just kind of stops. And I thought that was an interesting decision to make.
It's a good part in the story.
Well, they all he's in the desert for a couple
of
years at that point after that, so they could all age a little bit. Yeah, I mean, how do you break it in two pieces? I mean, I guess you could ask Peter Jackson, how do you make one book into 3 movies, because he knows how to do that. So
there you go.
Hey Peter, what do I do? How do I make this into 5 movies? But
you shoot 85 years of footage, and then you're good.
So, yeah, it's I don't know that you'll ever be able to do it better, maybe, because it's just, I want to say the word's definitive, but it's kind of the definitive Dune maybe at this point, considering it was always considered unfilmable or whatever, like other books, and it is very. I mean, if you read the book, it's very in people's heads. There's a lot of, and to do David Lynch's credit, he did try to get that in his version. I mean, people, the sleeper must awaken and that kind of shit. But it was almost, it was definitely borderline cheesy at points. But the tooth, I still remember that. That makes me laugh. But it's he tried.
The sort of monologuing I thought was really interesting in the Lynch one. I almost missed that, like watching the Villanueva one, because wait a minute, so he's not going to spend most of the movie talking to himself out loud, like he's talking. There's not going to be a monologue. How will I know what's happening in this movie if someone's not telling me?
I didn't need that, because I could still hear it in my head when I was watching the new one. I was like, why isn't Paul talking to himself? He doesn't need to. I know what he's going to say, but. Anyway,
right.
So all right, well, Dune is a great choice, Rick. That's a good way to start us off. We should probably not dwell on it too long, otherwise this will be a Dune podcast, which is fine. But we should. We should probably move on to another movie. Joe, it's your turn. What do you got?
So I know this is going to be kind of wishy-washy a little bit, but I had 2 that I couldn't decide between as my favorite movies of the year. One of them, I'm pretty sure, I suspect Chris is heading in this direction, and that is, of course, The Harder
that's
They
on my
Fall.
list for sure.
That movie was just gorgeous in every way, and honestly, I have watched it multiple times, and I cannot find. I even did my pass to try to find something wrong with it, and I just can't. It's just
it's great,
just an amazing movie all around. And
amazing soundtrack.
Oh yeah, I mean, from the soundtrack up. I mean, visually, even the sound design. I was gushing watching the movie the first time to people afterwards, like, you're not going to believe this. And unfortunately, there's too many people that are not smart enough, and they didn't get it.
They didn't get it. Yeah.
They didn't.
It's
They
a
didn't understand. It's from Canada.
it's a
They've
western.
never
It's
seen
hard to
it,
understand.
but
It definitely was one of those movies that had me looking up stuff afterwards too to find out,
yeah,
how each of the characters were represented in this versus
Definitely.
the actual historical counterparts, which I thought was fascinating. Like any movie that makes me do that, I know must have hooked me somehow.
absolutely. So yeah, I would say that that The Harder They Fall is, however, tied closely for me with No Sudden Move. That's another movie that I just thought was just outstanding. And again, there wasn't anything wasted in that movie. It also looked in its own way visually stunning, and just was great. A nice little callback to kind of noir fiction, and it was just that one. I've watched a few times too, and again, I don't see anything wrong with it. It's just a fantastic movie. So for me, The Harder They Fall and No Sudden Move, my two favorite movies for the year.
Wow. Did you see? Did you
Those
see
are great
those, Rick? You
choices.
saw both of those, I'm sure.
Yes, yeah, and noir had a good year. I feel like that whole genre
Yeah.
had a pretty good year with No Sudden Move, and then Nightmare Alley and things like that. Like noir is
Yeah,
having a good year.
unfortunately, I haven't seen Nightmare Alley, and I want to badly. When I was looking
Yeah,
for
me
Spider-Man
too.
tickets, I was like, well, I could just see Nightmare Alley instead. But I do want to see. One thing we will not mention in this episode is Spider-Man, probably because I don't think any of us have seen it yet because we're behind the
No.
times. And also, I haven't seen The Matrix, although I know Rick did. But it does come out on my birthday, so that's exciting. But I will definitely see it. I'll probably watch it at
Nice.
home, but I'm sure it'll be amazing. But let's hope.
Yes.
But yeah,
Happy birthday to you! It is
good,
amazing.
good.
So happy
Thank
birthday
you.
to
There
you.
we go.
And also the
Perfect.
finale of Hawkeye, which is come on, it's a great day.
Boy, you're gonna have a good week.
But
That's
anyway,
awesome.
by the time this show comes out, although it comes out tomorrow, so maybe it's fine. Anyway,
Yeah.
I have a lot of work to do. Anyway, but yeah, those are two great picks. I could not agree more. That I think we talked about this before about Harder They Fall, especially. There was only one sort of thing that not bothered me, but it's just only one sort of thing I was thinking about. Like you never see the bad guy's face at the beginning, like Idris Elba's character. No spoilers, but yeah, a little spoiler maybe. But
Right,
but
right.
and then we know why, because they didn't want to de-age him. But I'm sure that was part of it. So it's like, well, that kind of calls attention to the filmmaking mechanism, to me at least. And maybe we're more unique in that respect. Maybe everybody didn't think of that, but I did, and it kind of for a moment took me out of it. But the movie more than redeems itself.
Okay.
By being kick-ass the rest of the time. The other thing I was going to mention, one of my picks for TV is a show that's on HBO with Daniela Deadweiler in it, who was so great in The Harder They Fall. But she's awesome in this show that I will pick later when we get to TV. But good picks, man. Those are really good ones.
Well, what's yours then for the year? Are you just going to go with Harder They
for movies?
Fall,
Well, I mean, so far you guys have been we've been lockstep, as it were. Dune, Harder They Fall, No Sudden Move, but I'm also going to pick something else. I'm going to pick a movie called Last Night in Soho, which you actually picked before. That's one of my favorites. I do love Edgar Wright, and I do think that he's an amazing and talented filmmaker, and he makes things that are sort of out of the mainstream, I think, in a lot of ways. He definitely has a signature. He may not be as successful as some other people, but he's still, I think, making some really interesting films. And this was a great sort of horror slash also maybe noir, if you think about it a little bit. I just loved it. I thought it was amazing.
Absolutely.
Anya Taylor-Joy was great in it. Matt Smith and a bunch, everybody basically was uniformly excellent. And I liked the music, and it was so visually interesting and scary. I'm not going to lie, it was a little scary too. I enjoyed it a lot. So that's one of my picks for one of my favorites of 2021. I don't want to say, I don't want to make the mistake of saying these are the best movies of 2021. They're kind of more like, they're kind of like
no.
our favorites.
Our favorites.
Yeah, that's probably a better thing to say it. So
Yeah,
did you see?
Yeah, I feel like there's always a difference between best and favorite. I think are two very different qualifiers in when it comes to things like this, because we all have different tastes. It's so subjective when it comes to
Right. Well, I mean,
favorite.
I'm obviously right,
Exactly.
but I mean the rest of it. I'm kidding. Just
That's
kidding. As long as we
right.
understand
Yes,
that
exactly.
part. Yeah. So
You're
Yeah.
the
yeah, I'm the
objective
objective judge. Exactly. I am the law. So, did you see Last Night in Soho, Rick? Oh.
I did not, and it disappoints me because I do love Edgar Wright's films, but that is one I have not been able to catch quite yet, because it was in a weird place when it came out, where there weren't digital screeners being made available of it, and it spent such a short time in theaters around me, and so it sort of went into and out of theaters, and there was no digital screeners put out for press, and all of these factors kind of contribute to the fact that it just went on and off my radar in like no time at all, which stinks because I love Edgar Wright's films, and I know that he is going to do something amazing with it, but I have not.
No, it's definitely worth seeing. Yeah, I know that was a thing that was getting to you this year, especially maybe the last couple of years with the digital screener thing. I know that that they weren't. I don't know why. And Joe and I have commented on this many times, like only in theaters. Like no shit, but come on, don't be a dick about it. It's just like I understand you want people to go to the theaters, and look what's happening with Spider-Man. Everyone's going, and hopefully Spider-Man doesn't become a super spreader event. But hey. Anyway, I get it, man, and that sucks. And they should provide alternatives, but filmmakers are weird like that. I'm sure, like, well, you got to see it in the way I intended, so
Right.
The way you intended, me sitting there while someone 2 rows in front of me is on their phone the entire time while I'm watching the movie, or the teenager working in the projector area there, forgets to turn off all the lights in the theater, so I can't see half the screen, just as the filmmaker intended.
I guess you really can't recreate that experience at home.
You could. You could just leave a light on, or have a screaming child, or whatever.
Well, yes.
Or you can have other family members sitting on the sofa, looking at their computers, and playing video games. Boy,
and getting up and walking in front of you
never
every
happens,
5 minutes.
But that's why.
I just always laugh because when I do occasionally get digital screeners for things, I watch them on this entire room that I have dedicated to be a movie and TV room. I've set up this room with a massive screen. I have this great audio, this surround sound, all this stuff that I really put a lot of time and money investment into to make a sort of home theater system. But when I get the digital screeners, they have my email address massively watermarked across the center of the movie.
Right.
And so I'm like, that doesn't feel quite like how the filmmaker intended either. And I understand the copyright concerns, but I'm just kind of laughing because it feels like there's no way to actually watch it in some pristine form that everyone keeps alluding to, but is kind of impossible to create.
Well, I have the same problem because I get a lot of screeners because I'm a Directors Guild member, and that's the guild of the directors. Mm-hmm. So when I get the movies as screeners from them, it has this unique code of mine in the middle of the screen. So if I pirate it, then everyone knows it was me, and I'm like, I agree with you. I don't think that's how the director thought you'd experience his movie with a giant number thing in the middle of the screen. So
a lot of TV studios have gone to digital. They call them digital screening rooms or whatever instead of sending out discs now, and they do the same thing. It's like your email address floats around different parts, or there's a code right in the middle, and I'm like, well, that's not distracting. Or I'm like, well, wait a second, is that I want to do that for a review one day. It's like, well, I'm not sure what the numbers in the middle meant, but they never really played that out in the finale.
So that kind of went nowhere. That was a subplot that went nowhere. That was weird. That's a plot hole. I don't get it.
So
I don't know. Here I am complaining about getting free movies. Yeah,
free stuff.
I hit.
Right, and there's the other part of it. It's hard to complain about it, but also it is for me. It's part of my job. So I have to kind of watch these things. So it's definitely a touchy subject, I guess, myself and others in this sort of area because I want to watch it. I set up this whole room to watch these things and to get that experience, but unfortunately, I've got a watermark all the way across the thing. Yes. And then when I go to the local theater here, my local theaters are not quite like the theaters that you might get, in very Hollywood-focused areas in LA or New York City or something like that. Our local theater here is, a little rundown Regal where there's usually kids running up and down the halls and the hallway and people on their phones and some guy forgetting to turn off the lights or that sort of thing.
Yeah, that used to happen when I would go to AMC theaters when I was a kid. There's always some lights on in the middle of the ceiling. I'm like, dude, just turn the lights all the way off. It's like, well, we can't do it because people might stumble or whatever when they go up to concessions. I'm like, all right, thanks. Well, I won't be coming back here again. Yeah, I mean, I have a
right exactly.
As the filmmaker intended.
I have a screening room at home too. I did the same thing you did, probably. I mean, probably different equipment or whatever. But I mean, I went to the same trouble, and I just would like to watch stuff at home. Although I will say that I do miss going to the theater, so I kind of want to go back. It was weird that I haven't been in so long. It's something I would do. I would go to a movie every week, probably, at least. So
my
same.
my go back movie was Ghostbusters Afterlife, and I'm gonna be honest, it felt weird going to a theater, but within a few minutes of being there, once I had the popcorn and then the entertainment stuff before the movie and then the trailer, I'm like, oh yeah,
Yeah.
this is what it's all about. Yeah, I admit it. I do. I thought I would be, you know what, I'm fine. I got, stuff set up at home. It'll sound and look great, just like I'm in the theater. I can pause it when I want. But yeah, all it took was one time back. And yeah, I miss it. So I'm very much hoping that this next wave doesn't last so long so I can get back to the theater
Yeah.
again.
Anyway, I don't want to make this all about the bummer that is COVID, but yeah, it does. I mean, it impacts
Yes.
our lives a little bit. I mean, obviously, it makes it harder for Rick to do his job, which is not cool. But it's just,
Exactly.
I mean, I was happy staying at home, but I do. It's weird the things that you miss. Like I went to a restaurant the other day, and we sat outside, but like, well, I haven't been to a restaurant in a long time either. It was strange. Huh. Anyway,
Yeah.
all right. So, do you, Rick? You got another pick, or you got another best of, or whatever movie? Yeah.
Yeah, well, movie-wise, there's a couple of. I mean, I got a few other ones that I really liked. I don't know if they were my favorites of the year, but I really think they're interesting and have stuck with me. The Power of the Dog. It's a big critical darling
yes.
now, and I really loved parts of it, and other parts made me really uncomfortable with certain things. Like it's very tense. Like there's a very tense atmosphere to it that really gets under your skin at times, and I haven't seen too many movies like that really got under my skin that way, and I love the scenic vistas. I'm sort of a sucker for some of the old westerns that really sort of just lingered over these scenic western vistas and all that sort of stuff. And I love that, and this movie really went all in. Jane Campion went all in on that in here, and Benedict Cumberbatch. I mean, who would have thought Benedict Cumberbatch, playing a rancher, a rancher would be one of these roles. I'm like, he is born to play an American rancher,
and
right?
a
In
giant
the Old
prick
West,
too, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, that I could almost
I guess
believe. That wasn't as much of a surprise.
He's kind of channeling some Doctor Strange in there, maybe, or something. But
yeah. But I did love Power of the Dog. I thought that was wonderful performances all around. I thought that was a great one. And to be honest, also the Suicide Squad, I absolutely loved.
Yes.
I can't say enough good things about a movie that makes me laugh that much.
Yes.
I James Gunn can do no wrong in my mind at this point, and I absolutely loved that film. It was what I hoped it would be, and it made me laugh at a time when laughter was very important. During all the things we've been going on, and I absolutely loved it. It was such a fun.
Yeah, movie. It was fun and goofy, which I loved it too. It's just and also Power of the Dog actually was a pick of mine. I don't know, the episode before. Joe, I don't think has had a chance to see it yet, but you're right. You nailed it though when you said it sort of creeps in on you and it's unsettling. And that's probably why I was thinking about it afterwards. And that's probably why one of the reasons that I picked it is that it's so well done, obviously from a filmmaking standpoint, because Jane Campion is a very good filmmaker. But there's just so many things that kind of are unsettling about it. You don't know how it's going to go. And I think that's another thing that I responded to is I couldn't necessarily predict exactly what was going to happen because I've seen a lot of movies, as I'm sure you guys have too. And it's just, you kind of can tell sometimes what's going to happen. But for this, I was not on the edge of my seat necessarily. I was like, wow, how's this going to go? And that was cool. You don't get that very often. That was really cool. So I liked it a lot, actually. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
And then, Suicide Squad, of course, is comedy gold.
That was a lot of fun. Yes, absolutely.
Who doesn't like exploding bodies and stuff? It's funny. So.
Well, and King Shark was just
King Shark and Starro. Yeah, it was just I don't know. Here's the thing about that though. I don't know that Peacemaker was my favorite character. He was amusing, but I don't know if I want to see a whole series about him. But that's another topic for another day. But still,
I kind of feel the same way. He wasn't my standout favorite character in it, but I'm intrigued to see what the show is about. Mainly because I'm intrigued about all of the other characters that might be coming into it, making cameos and be introduced through the Peacemaker show. I think that is what actually I'm most excited about seeing, in that series.
Definitely.
I'd agree.
What about you, Joe? Any other movies?
Yeah, I got a couple more that I really liked this year. It was funny because in making a list and checking it twice for this, I realized that a lot of the movies I was picking were from October forward, and I'm like, did I, even though I didn't go to the theater, didn't I see any other movies? And yeah, of course I did. And one of the ones that I want to give a call out for is a very timely movie from back in January, in the beginning of January, actually, a movie called Lockdown. Doug Liman directed it, stars Anne Hathaway and Chiwetel Ejiofor, and it is about a couple, and it's very weird. It's a romantic comedy heist movie, and it kind of starts out as a study of this couple's relationship breaking down during lockdown, literally during COVID, and because of various circumstances and the type of work they're both in, they both plot to steal a diamond from Harrods because it takes place in London. And through it all and misadventures and getting caught out and all this kind of stuff, they end up reevaluating the relationship, and it actually ends up with a sweet ending. And it sounds like pretty like pat movie, but I just thought it was really well done and very well acted. And it was one of those things that, hey, you know, we've been in lockdown for many months at that point, and it was kind of like seeing I don't know, it's kind of weird seeing entertainment that also reflected what we were going through. Kind of made things a little better. It's kind of cathartic in a way. So I really appreciated that movie and really liked it. The other one that kind of stuck out and kind of still sticks with me is Boss Level. I'm a sucker for time travel and time loop movies. And Boss Level, we've talked about this on the podcast. It's like, if you're going to do a genre, this is kind of why I don't like a lot of horror movies. It's like, do something different. Don't just try to one up the last person. Do something different with it. And I felt like Boss Level was a very good sci-fi oriented version of Groundhog Day, but it did just the way they presented things and the way it was done and written just seemed different to me. And I really, really enjoyed it. And especially kind of having an ambiguous ending. Spoilers, but
spoilers.
But yeah, those are two other movies from earlier in the year that I'm a big fan of.
I had forgotten about Boss Level, and I absolutely loved that film.
Yeah.
That was, I absolutely loved that. My wife and I watched it, and we were cracking up watching it. We were like, this is amazing. Because we had seen this so many times, like you said, with Palm Springs, with Groundhog Day. We've seen this, Russian Doll. We've seen this premise so many times, and this managed to do it differently. And I absolutely loved it as well. It was very creative, very unique, and you are totally dead on with that.
Yeah, I also will say I enjoyed Boss Level too. You know, Carnahan and Frank Grillo are doing some really cool movies. I also really like Cop Shop too, which they just came out with a couple months ago. Which I thought was great, and has Gerard Butler in it and Frank Grillo. But yeah, I thought that that Boss Level was excellent. I really enjoyed it. But to talk about your other pick too, that was also a great one. So I don't know. I saw that, and that's the first time I've really liked Anne Hathaway in a long time, because I was like, she's actually pretty good. And of course, Chiwetel Ejiofor is awesome, and Doug Liman, a pretty good director, as we know. Who also did a movie about Groundhog Day sci-fi as well. So
he did, yes. Apparently, they're doing a sequel.
All you need is kill,
years,
or whatever you're going to call it. But kill. All you need is kill again. But yeah, I mean, Boss Level was really good. And I didn't even mind that Mel Gibson was in it. It didn't bother me that much. But the fact that Michelle Yeoh shows up.
It's funny that you say that.
I'm sorry.
We just watched Fat Man as one of our Christmas movies, and I literally had the same exact reaction. I'm like, I like this movie, but
yeah.
It's unfortunate. It's unfortunate when people turn out to be horrible. It's unfortunate, but anyway, I still love Lethal Weapon. In fact, that's one of my Christmas movies that I watch, like Die Hard and whatever. And I will overlook it because Danny Glover is a national treasure, and I don't.
Yes,
Mel Gibson is whatever, but I think Boss Level was excellent. I don't know if it got as much love as it should have. And again, Cop Shop also I think was really good too. It wasn't one of my picks on my list, but since you brought up Joe Carnahan and Frank Grillo, I thought I'd bring that out there. But it was cool. And again, any movie with Michelle Yeoh, I'm totally in. So.
Of course.
And she's shaped up to have a big year coming up.
Yeah.
She's in every single trailer, everywhere that we've seen lately. So, hey, good for her, because I will watch her.
Well, she was awesome in Shang-Chi, but also the name of the movie that the trailer just came out, Everything Always or whatever it is. Yeah, it's just
Everything,
always,
everywhere,
all the time.
That looks fucking
once,
weird,
yeah.
but I love it. I don't even care.
I know.
I don't even care what it's about. Yeah,
I'm in. Yeah.
But yeah,
Take my money.
she looks great. It's great to see her get to do comedy because she did a lot of comedy, especially in some of the Chinese films that she was in. There's a lot of comedy in those. She's very funny, and the physical comedy she can do, obviously. This is now a Michelle Yeoh stan podcast, but that's fine.
I think that's okay.
Yeah, she's awesome.
I will.
She's
defend
awesome,
that.
and yeah, Boss Level was great. So, let's see. What do I have in my? Oh, you mentioned that you don't like horror films, but here's a horror film that you might like. I don't know. One of my favorite horror films of the year is a movie called Werewolves Within. I don't know if either one of you guys saw that movie, but it's like a little indie horror film. It's got Sam Richardson in it and Melania Van Trub, the girl who does the AT&T commercials. But hey, she's actually quite a good actress, as it turns out. But Sam Richardson is funny as hell in this. But it's sort of a spoof of werewolf films, but it's so like, I don't know how to say it. It's so endearing in a way. It's just a really, really funny, but also bloody and scary sort of horror film. But it's excellent. I enjoyed it a lot. If you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth watching. If you guys like horror films, I don't know if you do, but I do. But I don't see a lot of them anymore. I think when you have kids, you don't watch as many horror films, maybe. But
I would say it isn't so much that I dislike horror films. I dislike
you
the
just
movies
dislike people.
Well, yeah, I dislike movies with people in them.
That's going to make it tougher. Yeah.
I dislike the movies where it's like murder and mayhem as realistically as possible. It's like that to me is not like, oh wow, that was so real. That was cool. That turns me off. I'm a bigger fan of supernatural horror movies. And again, people that do something different with it, like Last Night in Soho and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. I mean, I think it has enough twists, which I appreciate. Because again, I have the same problem, which I'm sure you guys do too. We've just seen so many movies, and I've written movies, and whatever. And it's just, and Joe has too. I know, but it's hard to surprise me because there's 10 people in the movie. One of them has to be the killer. There's not going to be like you're not going to Deus Ex Machina this shit by the end, or maybe you will. I don't know, but so. The fact that twists and turns can still happen and we're still surprised, that's kind of like a good barometer for me, at least, where I'm like, oh, thank God, something interesting that's going to surprise me. But the other thing about Werewolves Within, it's kind of a little bit like Hot Fuzz. I know that's a weird
Oh, interesting.
I have not seen Werewolves Within. I saw the title come through, and I wish I had spoken to you before Halloween or so I could have put this on my Halloween list, because this sounds like exactly the sort of movie I would love to watch, and it's going to be on whatever list I have coming out.
It's definitely worth it. It's definitely worth it for Sam Richardson, especially. The fact that he hasn't blown up more is surprising. He is excellent in. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Have you know this actor? Okay, go ahead. I know Rick does. Okay.
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he's great. And so the whole thing is just, the premise is interesting. It's like, people are disappearing in this small town. And he's like a park ranger, and he's like, it's funny, and it's got a heart in the right place. So I enjoyed that very much. And then let's see what else is on my list. The other thing that I really enjoyed, which surprised me a little bit, because I'm not a big sports biopic kind of fan, except I do like Rudy, because that's like, everyone likes Rudy, I guess. But I saw the movie King Richard with Will Smith. See that
I've heard good things about that,
and I like tennis, so it's the other thing too. Is it just came up at the right time? Maybe, I don't know, but it's so well done, and to see the story of these two tennis players, the Williams sisters, just how they struggled. I mean, and the thing that's interesting about it, some people are complaining like, oh, it showcases Will Smith, like the dad did everything, but the truth is the dad did a lot, and they authorized the movie about him as a tribute to him, which is interesting. But he's he got kind of a bad rap back then as like manipulating them and pushing them too hard and whatever, and being difficult and just kind of in it for the money and stuff, as people do sometimes. But they will be the first to say that they would not be where they are today without him. And it comes through. And Will Smith, of course, awesome in the movie. So, and the two girls who play the sisters, amazing. The whole cast is amazing. It's very well directed and very well done in general. It's just a really good movie. and it sort of it was somewhat like, oh, they become superstar tennis players, obviously, but the road to get there was super interesting, and there's a lot of things that were surprising to me. I already kind of knew their story a little bit, but there was a lot of things that came up. So, and it's just really well done, and it made you feel something, which is unusual these days, especially. So,
Yeah,
but I enjoyed it. So.
Well, on that note, the one last one that I would love to just sort of squeeze in there, it just occurred to me too. A movie that makes you feel something. Luca, the animated movie. I forgot that it even came out in 2021 because it came out like much earlier in the year. But the animated Pixar film about the friend sea monsters who end up exploring this little town in coastal Italy was one of my absolute favorite films of the year as well, because it totally got my whole family thinking about cooking and eating and all these things being like Italian food and Italian this and that.
Nice.
And we ended up coming up with some of our favorite meals now that have become recurring parts of our sort of things that we make in our family now. We make a meal based on something we saw in this animated movie, this pasta al pesto that we saw in there that we recreated at home here and has become part of our regular menu, with our family. That doesn't happen that often. It's just this wonderful, heartwarming animated movie that also, doesn't involve these horrific tragedies that so many other Pixar and Disney films. While it has some down points, it doesn't have the horrific tragedies that make you sad as sad while watching it, as others do. It was just two young, sort of young kids, young boys, I guess sea monsters, just kind of out there coming of age in in a little Italian city and learning, eating gelato and pasta and riding around on a moped, on a Vespa. Their biggest thing was just they wanted to travel on a Vespa, and it sort of evoked a lot of childhood memories that I had of just hanging out with my friends, when I was really young and the world seemed so huge and full of potential and full of wonder and such, and food was amazing, and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, it's watching a movie that makes you taste the food, I think, is kind of an amazing thing to achieve, and that movie
I love that. Yeah, we watched it with with some friends, and we were potting up with a few people who were taking, doing their precautions and getting their vaccines and whatever. So their son and my son were watching Luca, and we of course got sucked into it. Yeah, it's adorable. It's really quite good. I was impressed. I don't watch a lot of animated films anymore. I don't know why. You'd think I would, but it was great though. It's a great pick. It's maybe it's for younger kids. I don't know, but I certainly thought it was good.
Nice.
I feel like I watch more animated movies now than I ever had. I've gone the opposite direction because it's the easiest way for me to squeeze them in was, when my kids are awake and that sort of thing. So I can actually let's watch this movie that Daddy has to watch.
That's actually
to
really
review
smart.
or to write about.
Yeah, we don't have
so
a lot of things in common. My son is into, I like Pokemon, but not as much as he does. So anyway, but that's not important right now. But yeah, it's really cute, and it's really like you said, you're right about the food too. That's funny because we actually had Italian food while we were watching the movie. It sort of made sense. So it works out. Any other movies? Oh, the only other thing I wanted to mention for movies is, and I know Joe and you and I talked about this a lot already, but is one of my favorite documentaries of the year, which is of course Beatles Get Back, which I thought was spectacular as we talked about before, a couple of episodes worth of Beatles. But I don't, I don't jump on the documentary bandwagon probably as much as I should, because there's a lot of good documentaries out there, but this was just, extraordinary. And we joke about Peter Jackson and his long movies, but this is one Peter Jackson movie that I would definitely watch more of. So it was extraordinary, I think.
So I was going to pick that for TV since.
I could. Yeah, okay. I guess that's true. I kind of consider it a documentary. I guess it's a documentary series. You're right. It could be TV too. So that's fine.
Yeah.
Well, that's a good transition then. So let's just transition to TV then. And TV can be, of course, anything that was streaming or whatever, and clearly anything that was on HBO Max, but also a documentary. But yeah, they're probably going to release it in theaters, so I'll get vindicated for that one. Damn it! But
maybe we'll see. I know. So I know that the original director for Let It Be has been working on remastering it using the technology that Peter Jackson did. So maybe,
Mr. Lindsay Hogg.
But yeah, yes, but no, I'm gonna pick that as my favorite TV event, or I guess series event of the year of 2021, and just I barely scratched the surface when we talked about this several times on the podcast, but just my ever since I can remember, since I was a little kid, to me it's always been the Beatles and then other music, right? So that's kind of how ingrained and how much the Beatles have been in my psyche and in my life for, I don't know, go close to 50 years now. I'm an old man. So getting this kind of basically seat at the table is really, really what it felt like. Was just it was amazing. It was emotional. It was fantastic, and the only drawback is like, man, I wish they had done one of these for like all their albums, or at least for like Abbey Road and the White Album. But it was phenomenal, and I have seen. I haven't watched. We talked about this. I haven't watched Let It Be because it was like, it focuses on the negative, and I just never wanted to see that. But I've seen like bits and pieces from it, and the amount that Jackson was able to clean this up is phenomenal. I mean, it really looks like, I know the joke is, oh yeah, it'll look like it was shot today. It really does. It was beautiful. So yeah, I could go on the rest of the show about it, but yeah, that's my favorite series TV event of 2021.
That's a good one. Yeah. Rick, did you watch that, or are you not a big Beatles fan?
Yeah, I watched some of it. I am not a huge Beatles fan. Not in terms of just like wanting to know all the history behind them. I know a lot about them. I've one of my best friends has a tattoo of Paul McCartney as a child on his arm. He's a huge fan, and so hanging out with him has been a sort of experience learning about the Beatles over the years, and it was all Beatles all the time with him, and so a lot of the things that go on with their history and such I already sort of knew from just listening to this friend of mine talk on many late nights. You would just start talking about the history of the Beatles, and so sorry, that's a weird thing to bring up, but yes, he has a tattoo of Paul McCartney as a child, and which is, I always find to be the funniest thing about it, is it's Paul McCartney as a child.
Right.
Like,
that's quite a flex, as they say. But
yes. So I grew tired over the years of hearing so much about the Beatles. While I do love their music, and I think they are phenomenal, I'm not as interested in the sort of behind the scenes take on things sometimes with them that many other people are interested in.
I mean, honestly, I kind of was feeling the same way. I was like, will I really want to watch this much of this sort of behind the scenes kind of thing? And I sort of enjoy making of things. Like, I'll watch the making of movies and I'll listen to the director's commentary because I'm a weirdo. But I was just, it's hard to, like Joe said, it's hard to, you're like, have a seat at the table and you're sort of in the room while these geniuses are creating, iconic music that is still played today. I mean, how, you can hear Beatles on radio stations right now.
Yeah.
And it's just, you are basically in the room. And as someone who does creative things, quote unquote, and having been in creative rooms like this, not as a musician necessarily, but, in other kinds of things, it's just, the process was so fascinating to me. And obviously there was a lot more to it than we're watching, because there's 100 and some hours of video or whatever, or not video, but of footage, or 60 hours of footage and 100 hours of audio. Anyway, you just, you get a really good glimpse of, this is how, people create at this level. And it's just, and they started from nothing too, and they push through and they come up with genius. Now, not everybody's going to be able to do that because not everybody's a genius, but the point was that they got it done, right? They finished it. And that's what people always have these arguments of, how do you become a writer? How do you do this? How do you do that? Well, first of all, you have to write every day probably. And you have, it's not going to be perfect. You have to fucking finish it. Otherwise it's never going to get seen by anybody. So they may have been disappointed with their songs, maybe sometimes, or there was a hard process, but they finished them and got them out, which I think is why, Joe and you and I were talking about this. Why did Paul impose this deadline? I think he's a person who needed a deadline, right? So you need to have a shipping date. Otherwise you're going to, you know, whatever. I don't know. I just
Exactly.
find it fascinating, and I thought I wouldn't. And I mean, I wasn't sure, but I just got sucked into it, and I watched the entire thing in one night. So it's just, it was amazing to me. And
Yep.
I'm not as big a Beatles fan as you are, Joe, but it's just, from a purely creative standpoint, from a purely, fly on the wall kind of, this is an insight into the creative process of these kind of people, and it's just, it was fascinating. So, but again, it's not for everybody, like you said, Rick. It's
Yeah.
just not for everybody. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I could go on and on. Clearly, I
Yeah,
am.
I'm always
But
fascinated by the creative process is always fascinating no matter what.
it
Too, I
is.
think no matter what medium it is. I mean, you could watch somebody. I could watch somebody, preparing for some sport that I have no interest in playing myself and no interest in learning about. But if it's done well and sort of showing their process in preparing and doing what they do, I think anything can be
Yeah,
fascinating.
it's absolutely right.
Yep.
I mean, I don't really, I played sports. I don't really care for sports related stuff now, but I bet it would be interesting. Like, I watched, one of my picks for TV is going to be Ted Lasso, and I don't really care about English rules football, but but I love this show. So there you go. Which doesn't have that much to do with football, probably, but anyway, we'll get to my TV picks, but. I mean, I guess I can go now, I suppose. So one of my
Sure.
favorite
Well,
shows of
yeah.
this year, of course, it's not just from this year, was Ted Lasso. Excuse me, but it's just, I don't know. It's one of those things where, and I've tried to explain this to Joe before because I don't think he's a fan, but it's just, when it first came out, it was like a breath of fresh air. I know that sounds ridiculous in a way, but it was so positive and so upbeat and so like, we can do this kind of rah stuff, which normally I might be too cynical to necessarily go for. But for some reason, it just struck a chord with me, and obviously with a lot of people, that it just was the right thing at the right time, and it was like a balm, as they say, right? And it just stuck with me, and I don't know, it became a part of me, and I mean, that sounds silly, but I love the show and I love the characters. This second season wasn't as good in my opinion, but that's just because they're kind of on a darker trajectory, and I'm sure they'll turn it around. But everybody was having their problems. There was some definite growing pains. Maybe they didn't anticipate their level of success. Who knows? But it's just, there was some definite growing pains for the characters and stuff. But I like the way they're taking most of the characters. So anyway, that's one of my favorite shows
Cool.
of the last couple of years, I
That's
guess.
that's absolutely my one of the two that I was going to name as well, because I absolutely loved season 2 of the series as well. I think the pivot that they make in season 2 was so necessary, because I think that the first season, like you said, it was so relentlessly positive, and much you say, like, we can look at that and be very snarky about it, be very cynical about it, but all of the characters, all the presence of that cynicism and that skepticism about relentless positivity was included in the first season. Like, the people around him were cynics and skeptics and just wanted to beat him down more than anything else. And the fact that the first season of the show sort of illustrated how positivity can win out against that, and positivity can shine through if you just find different angles on your positivity, be willing to adapt. I think that was wonderful to introduce that character, and then I think it was great in the second season to then pivot to how all of these other colorful characters, their lives and interactions and emotional well-being and all of these other factors about them were changed by Ted Lasso coming into their lives and that positivity. The you know uh, Roy Kent is one of my favorite characters on television, like
No,
in
he's
all of
awesome. Yeah.
television right now, because I think that he just shows this ability for someone who is older and maybe set in their ways and gruff and looks at the world a different way and is naturally sort of predisposed to being cynical or pessimistic about things, but how that type of person can also learn around them and be flexible and be willing, with an open mind, with, like, by opening their mind, they can also sort of change and adapt to things that maybe they're not entirely comfortable with, but they become so because they're willing to sort of look at things maybe from another person's perspective and not just immediately shut down. And I love that character because it's so representative of what maybe we should all aspire to be in some ways. And I love so many of the other characters in season 2 as well, because it really gets into sort of the value of your mental well-being, and when has that ever been more important than right now in the last like 2 years that we've been through here? It's so important to be aware of your own sort of
Definitely, yeah.
mental well-being, and yeah,
I
I
Yeah,
love that
well,
aspect.
yeah.
I would say I don't dislike the show because I've never seen it. My only
Wow.
and I assume I will eventually watch it, and I'll sounds like I will love it. But I I have this kind of quirk in that all of a sudden, like right after it premiered, all anyone was talking about was Ted Lasso, Ted Lasso, Ted Lasso, and it's like, oh, you got to say Ted Lasso. Did you see Ted Lasso? And I'm just like, I'm already kind of tired of it, and I haven't even had a chance to watch it. So I'm like, you know what? I don't want to. I'm not interested. I got many other things to watch, but I will eventually, as I am wont to do, give it a chance. And I'm sure, based on what everyone has been saying about it, I will love it, and it will be kind of the balm I've been looking for during our dark times. But yeah, so I would say I don't have an opinion of it yet. I just haven't watched it yet. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
I wish I could go back and erase it from my brain and watch it all over again and just
nice.
recreate
Yeah.
those feelings. That doesn't happen that often, but that's one of those shows that I almost wish that I could just erase it and just watch it again and experience it all over again.
Yeah, I think
Nice.
it'll be something that I watch again. I'll go back and rewatch it. I guess my only real not complaint, my only real issue with season 2 is I understand what they're doing and why the characters are doing what they're doing, but Nate's way of stimulating his darker side was not appealing to me. I don't know why, but I know, Rick, you know what I'm talking about. But it's just that kind of thing just seemed weird. It almost seemed like out of nowhere in a way. But I feel like it's going to be explained maybe. But yeah, I'm going with it because I enjoy the show so much and I believe in what they're doing. I mean, it's only going to have 3 seasons, so they're going to have to something's going to have to happen. But to turn it around maybe or whatever. But yeah, it made so much sense that's how things, like you said, pivoted. But yeah, Roy Kent, and plus Brett Goldstein, the actor who plays him, just his story is amazing too. The fact that he was a writer on the show and was like, I could play this character, and he sent a tape in of himself playing the character and got the part, and now he's got a whatever Golden Globe or whatever Emmy or something. It's just such an amazing story, and his character is definitely evolved, and it's definitely one of my favorites. But the funny thing about Roy Kent is that the best things in his life and the things that have evolved him the most, I feel like, are all women, right? His girlfriend, and then his little niece has changed him a lot. And it's like a female influence, and it's sort of softened him up or brought up the feelings that were already there. But yeah, his arc has been really, really fun to watch. But yeah, Joe, wait till it's, like you said, you're gonna wait till it's done and then you can watch it. But
every time you mention it, I'm going to add a month.
Whatever.
To, how long it's going to take me to watch it? No, I'm just kidding.
You're only hurting yourself, man.
I well, that's a common theme for me.
You got to believe,
okay.
man. You got to believe. So, all right. So those are Rick and I both picked Ted Lasso. What's another show for you, Joe?
I'm going to pick one that came out earlier in the year as well. That was, I think, tragically overlooked, even though it got renewed for a second season. But so it's a little show, lovingly titled "Kevin Can Fuck Himself," and it's a really, really interesting and well done observation, not just on everything that women face and continue to face nowadays, but also a really big meta statement on sitcoms. So the premise of the show is basically a sitcom wife trying to find her identity outside of her husband. So there's kind of like two sides to the show. Whenever the main character, well, not the main character, but whenever the husband is in the room or she's around him, it's presented as a shot on video, multi-camera sitcom with laugh track and everything. And the moment he leaves the room, or she does, it immediately switches to a single camera kind of dramedy type show. It's really bizarre, but it goes like, her husband is the typical like over the top guy that's oblivious to everything, and everything goes his way many times to the detriment of his wife, and he's quick to throw her under the bus, sometimes almost literally.
Well, spoilers.
And she eventually becomes like, I want out of this. And so it's really bizarre because she even tries to bring up, like, in the sitcom world, how ridiculous he's being and how things are going, and then it gets that ooh from the crowd and stuff like that, and it's just it's I don't want to say too much of it because there's a lot of spoiler material there, but it's fascinating to watch. It sounds like the second season is going to be the final season because again, I don't think they thought it would get as popular as it did and get renewed. So they have probably only a little bit of story that they can pull out of this premise, but it's very cool and worth watching. So there you go.
Wow, I haven't seen it. So the more times you mentioned it, though, oh no, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
I'm just
fine.
kidding.
You know what? If you watch that, I'll watch
Okay,
Ted Lasso.
deal.
How's
No
about
problem. I'll watch it tonight.
Where can we find Kevin? Kevin can go F himself.
that? It's on AMC, and they also they don't obviously swear too much on AMC, but yeah, it's an AMC show, so it can go push the boundaries a little bit, but it's worth watching.
I had
It's very
heard
good.
about it and saw the title sort of like flash by and like press and news stuff and never actually realized what it was about. So this is very
It does sound
intriguing.
interesting.
Yeah,
Well, see,
yeah.
that's another good thing about this particular episode is we're learning about new shows, and so are the people listening. So it's
Yeah.
wonderful. Yeah, I had also seen
That's
something
right.
about it, but I have not watched it. So I have learned something. I've written it down. I wrote down Kevin can go fuck himself, and so we're good. And I feel bad for Kevin a little bit, maybe, but maybe not. Maybe he's just.
You
I won't
won't
after I
you
watch it.
watch
Okay.
the first
All right. Good to
episode
know.
of the
Good to
show.
know.
Yeah.
All right. So that's good. What about you, Rick? You got any more?
Yeah, let's see. You talked about horror earlier, and one of my favorite shows of the year was a horror one. Netflix, Midnight Mass. I absolutely loved. It's absolutely wonderful. It is the premise is basically that a guy who grew up on this sort of remote, sort of almost not New Englandy, but sort of a remote fishing island. Is gone for a while, comes and is brought back under sort of not great circumstances, heads back to the old island where he grew up, and his arrival occurs simultaneous with the arrival of a new priest who will be there serving the residents of the island as well, and some strange sort of miraculous supernaturally type events begin occurring, and things sort of take a downward spiral from there, and it just it dives into a lot of really interesting sort of parallels and comparisons between sort of like Christian mythology and of all things like traditional horror elements, and it's by Mike Flanagan there, who did House on Haunted Hill and Haunting of Hill House. I'm sorry, Haunting of Hill House and Haunting of Bly Manor, as well as the Oculus movie. And I think he is one of the absolute greatest horror filmmakers doing that these days, because I think that he explores some really interesting themes using through the lens of the horror genre. With all these films, like, he just tackles some really complicated, heady stuff, but it's also scary and also has cool horror elements in it that are really good. So Midnight Mass doesn't go where sort of we expected it to as it started, and I think that's one of the best things about it. And when it sort of just firmly finds its footing in the horror genre and you realize that this is what it's going to be like, it still manages to be really, really compelling, even when it's doing the more traditional horror stuff. But the comparisons between sort of anyone who maybe served as a altar boy or went to church on Sundays or things like that, or like who was familiar with any of this stuff, will probably get a lot out of this this series, because it really dives into all of these sort of the dogma and the rituals and all of these sort of the mythology and things like that you are taught about the religion, but also the parallels those have between many of the traditional sort of mythology of horror in some ways, and that was fascinating to me.
It sounds cool. Yeah, I saw it because I like Mike Flanagan. I enjoyed his Gerald's Game adaptation that he did for Netflix, and also Doctor
Yes,
Sleep,
that as
which
well.
I thought was a really quite good sequel to The Shining, which I was surprised to see. Yeah, it's on my list. I just haven't gotten to it yet because there's, obviously there's time commitments, but I'm definitely going to watch it. I think he's doing some really great things with horror. Yeah, I like the fact that things, you take the tropes or whatever and you turn them on their end or whatever and sort of mix things up because that's how you got to do it, I think, these days. So I'm looking forward to watching it. It's definitely on my list. It was on my list before, but now it's moved up higher thanks to your recommendation.
Yeah, I may have to check it out. It sounds like something a little different take and something interesting. So
yeah, well, I mean,
there's some great performances in it. You'll see a lot of familiar. If you like the Haunting of Hill House or Haunting of Bly Manor, you'll see some familiar faces from those that sort of carry over. But yeah, it's quite good. And I think the only other one that I really like kind of came up when you were talking about your best of the year was also I had to check to make sure this was 2021, but WandaVision was WandaVision.
Yeah.
That's in this year as well, and I just am still sort of in shock that Marvel. I think we all kind of didn't know what to expect when Marvel announced they were going to be doing all these MCU shows, and I think with their first one, they picked just the right one to sort of start with because it wasn't what any of us expected, and they kept all the mysteries really well, and it was a surprise and really powerful, and also just it kicked things off in a really, really great way for all of these MCU shows.
Definitely. I was. It's on my list because I had forgotten, I guess, or just like because January or whatever when it came out. It's such a long time ago.
Seems like 10, right? Like you said, it's like
10 years ago or something. It feels like, but no.
Right.
It could have easily been like March 2020 when that came out, and I would not have been surprised at all.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you're absolutely right, though. I think that it's sort of we didn't know what to expect, and that was one of the strengths of the show. It's like, what is this that we're watching? And as the sort of puzzle, you peel the onion or whatever pick your metaphor, and you figure things out. And there were some things that were kind of dropped. Like there was some like Ralph Boner that was kind of a bummer, but overall it was the engineer, my aerospace engineer guy. And, there was definitely some dangling subplots or whatever you want to call it. But I think it's still, if not the benchmark for Marvel shows, it's definitely up there. Although it's sort of going hand in hand with that, which is interesting because this came out towards the end of the year. And I've said this before with Joe on the show. It's like I was not, a person who was like, God, I wish there was a Hawkeye show. That'd be amazing. But damn it, if they didn't, pull it off, because the Hawkeye is so good. I'm just loving it so much. I'm sad that it's going to be over this week. It's just, it's weird because you have this, much like WandaVision, you have these characters that are just, you see them in the big Marvel films and they're kicking ass and whatever, and they maybe slow down for 5 minutes to have sex or whatever they did in Endgame. They just wanted more time, but you don't really get the idea that how the extent of their relationship and the loss that she feels until WandaVision, and then you don't understand really Hawkeye or Clint's sort of loss. I mean, he thought his family was gone, and and it's like he went crazy, and he's trying to atone for that, and it's just that kind of thing. People give Marvel obviously in superhero movies and whatever a bad rap, but it's just some people do anyway. But it's just that kind of thing. I don't know that you can explore characters in a movie to that depth at all. But I mean, it took 6 episodes for me to like Hawkeye, which is weird. I mean, I didn't dislike him, but now I'm totally into Hawkeye. I think he's great. So anyway.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. The whole sort of PTSD type element that they explore with that of like, hey, yeah, this is what it would be like if you're just a guy among these like gods and superheroes and things like that, and you're just trying to survive. All those explosions that are going on when around all of these other people. Well, if you're on the ground, you're experiencing that too. And I think that was this brilliant sort of take on things that the show is exploring.
It's again, I was just surprised at how much I'm enjoying it. So, and I'm also very happy to see the fact that we can talk about this a little bit, obviously, but it's it's not spoilers at this point. But I was happy to see Wilson Fisk, and I was happy to see that means that hopefully Charlie Cox will be back with Daredevil, as Kevin Feige has said, and that's great because I loved that show, and I thought it was like we talked about it before, Joe and I, but it's like you have these great actors in these great roles. Why wouldn't you just use them? I mean, I'm not saying they should use everybody, like no Iron Fist guy for sure, but he's out. That guy's out.
They could redeem him. Marvel
No.
proper would do a good job with that character.
With Iron Fist, sure, but not with him. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know. Maybe okay. You know what? Maybe you're right, but I don't think they'll bring him back. There'd be too much backlash. But
No.
But the fact that they're doing such a good job with these shows, and it's just it's really cool. And we're getting the crossovers, and we're getting I don't know how it figures in with with Spider-Man, but I know it does, and future Marvel TV shows. And there was always a thing where TV's not as cool or whatever as movies, etc. But I think that Marvel's and to an extent Disney, of course, is A, trying to make money off of stuff, but B, they're letting them create these things, and I think they've got a really good thing going, and I hope they continue to do it. So it looks like they will, but I'm looking forward to the next show. It's so well done. So anyway,
Yep.
I don't want to go on about Hawkeye,
Absolutely.
but I could.
I totally could do it, and we could do
He's
a whole
dreamy.
show
Oh wait, sorry.
on Hawkeye. He is kind of dreamy.
I've always been a fan of Jeremy Renner. I think he's a good
Yes.
actor, and Haley Steinfeld is amazing in the show. And I was a fan of hers before, obviously, because she was way back in the day when she was in the Coen Brothers film. But she was great as Dickinson on Apple TV, and now she's just fantastic as Kate Bishop. So anyway, that's one of those good shows that I'm sad to see end. But hopefully they'll do a Hawkeye season 2. That'd be nice.
I would totally watch it.
So what about you got? Did I go now or who's next? I forget who's next. I lost the order of things. I started just rambling on about Hawkeye. So it's chaos,
man. It's
I
chaos.
don't know. It's
all right, I'll go again then. Another show that I found to be amazing. I've used that word a lot today, but I didn't know exactly what to expect. I only knew that it had 2 sort of icons of comedy and drama in it. And I just, I had to watch it because it looked funny. And so I'm talking about Only Murders in the Building, which I thought was such an amazing show with again 2 comedic icons. It's just, and again, it's about podcasts, which of course, are kind of fun,
well, that's
kind of near and dear. But
us,
it's just, it was so well done and so funny. And so, I mean, Martin Short, just like his I gotta think some of it was improv on his part, but it's just his delivery of stuff is so wonderful. And Nathan Lane is a bad guy. I mean, that was awesome, and it's just such a great show. I loved it, and I'm so thrilled that they're doing another season. In fact, they're shooting it right now, so that's awesome. So,
and I was like especially surprised, maybe not surprised, but I was amazed at how well Selena Gomez held her own with Steve Martin and Martin Short. I mean, they've got to be, as you said, they're icons of comedy. They, they can do stuff like this in their sleep, and it's funny. And she was right there with them, and it just, I don't know. It was another show that it's like I can't find anything wrong with it.
Well, she's extremely talented, and I had very little doubt that she could do it. But yeah, you're right. I wonder if it was. I would imagine it was intimidating in a way, but I would also imagine in my head canon that Steve Martin and Martin Short are very, very cool, generous, performers, and just generous, cool people to hang out with. It probably put her at ease, and we're just like keeping it light because I can't imagine Steve Martin's a dick. It's just not possible, right?
No, it just can't be. I refuse
to believe it.
Just don't dive into it. Don't dive into it.
Yeah.
What are you saying? No. Did you watch it, Rick? Did you watch Only Murders in the Building?
No, I didn't get a chance to watch it yet. But again, it was one of those ones where it's absolutely on my list of things to watch because I agree with you. Yeah, how could you not watch that? How not want to watch it with both of them in it? But yes, it just hasn't. I haven't got around to it yet. So a lot of the time, I find that it's there's always this balancing act when you want to watch a lot of things and you have family and things like that. 'Cause there's like things you can watch with your kids,
right?
Things that, you can watch with your significant other, your partner there. But if they don't want to watch that thing or aren't interested in it, then you have to put it off to another time. And there's a lot of balancing that goes on in trying to watch as many things as possible.
I just go to my office and close the door and say, "Don't come in. I'm watching shit." So. But yeah, no, you're right. It's hard. I just, I feel like I had a lot of extra time for the last year or two somehow.
Yeah.
So I was trying to cram in a lot of entertainment, but this was just, it wasn't something that I could just overlook. I mean, there's some things you can put on the I don't know. At least for me, there's some things I could say, "Oh, I'll watch that." It's on my list of things, and I do have a list. It's not a spreadsheet or anything because that's just weird. But I do have a list of things to watch and a
That'd be
stack of
weird, yeah.
DVDs to go through and whatever. But it's
Sure.
just like this was something I just love Steve Martin so much. He's just not only is he funny, but he's smart, which I appreciate. He's very very intelligent person. You can read his books, and he's written screenplays and whatever. He's just a smart, funny dude. And Martin Short obviously is just this is like a role he was like born to play. I feel like a lot of it is like him probably, but it's just it's just so well done. Amy Ryan was great. I won't spoil the twists and whatever, but it was just such a great show. And again, I'm thrilled to see more of it. I can't wait. But I guess
Steve Martin, also an excellent musician.
Yes.
His band has come around where I live here and played some shows at some of the places around here, and he's apparently an amazing banjo player.
That's true. Well, I mean, I've seen his stand up, not in person, but on on TV or whatever. But yeah, he definitely plays musical instruments. But yeah, just an all around. I don't want to say national treasure, but maybe. I don't know. Anyway. He's just great. So, but if you haven't seen that, it's definitely worth it, and I'm sure Rick will get to it. Whatever, man.
Yes.
Oh yes. Oh yeah, it's definitely in the queue. I mean, I have like 8 different streaming service subscriptions.
Wow.
So I'm just trying to make
that is impressive. Yeah, this was on Hulu, and Hulu was kind of on my shit list a little bit because they had canceled another show that I really liked, but after one season. But that's okay. They redeemed themselves with this for sure. So, what about? All right, I went. Now I guess it's Rick's turn again. Rick.
Oh, I guess on that Hulu front, I really loved What We Do in the Shadows this year. I thought it was fantastic.
Yes.
That show just I don't know how they keep making this theme and this topic funny season after season, because it feels like it should get tired after one season. I was even skeptical when they said they were going to make a TV show out of the movie that had come out about this, because I just didn't understand how it could continue to be funny for an entire season, but it does, and it just keeps getting funnier and funnier, and they're taking some really great places with this vampire mockumentary. Matt Berry continues to be one of my favorite people on television or anywhere. I could listen to him talk for hours. I would want him to narrate anything. Just his voice is amazing. I want him to record GPS directions, and I want to make his voice my GPS desperately. But yes, What We Do in the Shadows is wonderful. It just continues to have that Taika Waititi sort of vibe to it, Jermaine Clement vibe to it. They've managed to maintain that through season after season, and it just keeps staying amazing, which I am pleasantly shocked by.
Yeah, it's funny how that works out. You're like, I don't know if it's just we talked about cynicism a little bit. I don't know if I'm just have low expectations now, but when things are so good, you're like, oh wow, how are they going to fuck this up? But they don't sometimes, and yeah, they haven't managed to mess up that show yet, which is great. And I don't know if they will. I mean, Taika Waititi I would say is pretty talented. Jermaine Clement also, a very talented person. I think they're going to be okay. Awesome. But you're right. It does seem like a premise that could be worn out pretty quickly, but they do manage to keep cranking out the hits, as it were. So,
on that Taika Waititi, I mean, I'm just going to segue to another Taika Waititi one here, but Reservation Dogs.
If you see it, that was wonderful, brilliant. That was great.
Big fan of that one. I didn't quite know what to expect from it going in, because it's not typical Taika Waititi. I mean, even though he's not directing it or writing it or anything like that, he's producer on it. But he was the name associated with it going in, and so I had certain perception of what it might be like, and it's not quite like that at all. But it's this really wonderful thing on its own, like separate from that, and I really don't know where it's going or what to expect from episode to episode. But I just keep watching it because I find it fascinating.
The characters are just so interesting, and the whole thing is just You're right. I think part of the intrigue for me was that it is different than a lot of things that I've watched. Like Joe and I were big fans of Letterkenny. Which hopefully will come back eventually, because that's not, it's sort of an unusual show. It's not, I'm not from Canada and I don't, speak like that or whatever. It's just, it seemed like it was so removed from my experiences growing up in Southern California or whatever. But this is so different but the people are so interesting to me, and I hope there's going to be more of it. It's really enjoyable and funny too, which is nice. And I don't want to. I keep saying the word heart-warming, but it is kind of there's some feels in there too, which I appreciate. So,
Letterkenny is back next week.
What?
By the way, so
Yeah.
yes.
Oh my God, I did
Back
not
next
know that.
week,
Well,
yeah.
that's an amazing time. It's like another
And they shot 2 seasons.
birthday
back-to-back,
present
so.
for me. Are you the tough?
Yeah.
Are you the
So there
toughest?
you go.
Are you the toughest
Figure
man
it
in
out.
Letterkenny?
Yeah, figure it out.
Oh,
Pitter
God, that's
patter.
great. I don't know how I missed that. Oh, because I'm not really paying attention to anything. So
Well, there's a lot.
there's a lot out there.
so
Oh, that's
it's,
amazing. Yeah, great. Well, thank you. That's good news. So yeah, Letterkenny, I would
Yeah.
say is another show that will it come out in 2021? So good.
Yes.
That'll be on my list then. Perfect.
Yeah, it's like day after Christmas.
Oh, it's like a
so.
Christmas present. It's like a Boxing Day present.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll call my
See?
friends in LA and we can talk about it.
LA. Yes.
LA. Anyway, Joe, another show from you. You got another one?
Yeah, I'm going to throw out another one that's been overlooked and kind of has a dark shadow over it, but it's a show on HBO called The Nevers. And the premise of the show is it takes place in Victorian London, and there's an event that occurred that empowered, literally, with superpowers and various other supernatural powers, various people around the city, mainly women. And there is basically kind of an orphanage. It's almost like a Professor Xavier school for gifted youngsters, but it's a school where a lot of they're called the troubled go to be safe and to learn to hone and use their powers. There's a lot of twists and turns. The first half of the season 1 aired this year. The first 6 episodes has a great ending to keep you interested for the next 6 that are currently still being filmed, I think. The reason for that is the big stigma on it is a show created by Joss Whedon. So that is unfortunate, but they definitely downplayed his involvement when promoting the show. And from what I understand, pretty soon after the first season started, he stepped down for what he says with personal reasons, but it sounds like they were like, yeah, these allegations about you are getting worse, and we probably need you to not be involved anymore. So he's no longer involved. The next batch of episodes won't have any involvement from him. But it's a show that I hope people rediscover or discover at least, and definitely back it because it's something it's a story that can go on for a while, for many seasons, and I'm really fascinated by it. I love the characters. I really like the premise. It mixes, supernatural and sci-fi, and well, I don't want to say too much more because I don't want to spoil it, but it's definitely worth checking out. It's on HBO, so.
Yeah, I liked it too, and I was disappointed that. Well, you know what, man? Again, we talked about this before. It's like don't ever meet your heroes. Don't ever.
Yeah.
Not that Joss Whedon was my hero, but I do enjoy his shows, and it's just unfortunate that people turn out to be terrible. But it is definitely, if you didn't know it was a Joss Whedon show, you could guess pretty easily that it is by the premise. It's like powered women who live together and whatever. It's just But I enjoyed it a lot, and I'm happy to hear that that it's coming back, and he'll have less involvement in it. Because, maybe, there's a lot of other producers out there. Some of them are women probably, and they could maybe do something with the show.
In fact, there is a woman that took over.
There you go. So let's get some new voices in there and see what happens. But I enjoyed it a lot. I thought it was clever and not super predictable, and it had Nick Frost in it. So I'm in for that too.
Well,
Nick Frost is great. So I'm down with that show. Did you watch it, Rick, or no?
No, I have to admit that that Whedon's involvement with it was what sort of, it was it was one of those shows that looked intriguing, and I was like, wow, this show looks really, really cool. And then I heard everything else that sort of surrounded it and was like, well, maybe if I run out of other shows, I'll check it out.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah, it's weird how that works.
But honestly, your description of it makes it much more interesting to me, though, now. So now I feel like it's one of those ones I might need to go back now there's some distance.
I encourage you to give it a chance, especially understanding that his involvement, even in the first batch of episodes, lessens, and he's no longer involved. So there you go.
What's he going to do about his career, though? I'm just kidding. It doesn't matter.
I'm
I
not
don't
worried
I don't
about him
care.
at all.
It turns out I don't care. I should have known that he was a bad
Yeah.
person because, well, it doesn't matter. 'Cause that one time at Comic
Yeah.
Con in the
Well.
bar at the Hilton, or at the Hyatt, I should
Yeah.
say.
Yeah.
Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yeah, it's an interesting show, and I will definitely give it a chance for the second season or the second part of the episodes. I just hate that HBO seems to do that. Though. It's like, oh, here's 6 episodes, and now you have to wait 6 months for the second,
Like a
like they
year
used to
for the
do with The
next 6. Yeah.
Sopranos. You get another Sopranos season in 12 years. Here you go. Fucking
Right.
ridiculous.
Right.
But anyway, that's just what they do, I guess. But yeah, it's super cool. A show that I found very interesting this year was I'm sure I'm not alone in this, and I don't know if Joe, if you had a chance to watch it or Rick, but I really enjoyed it, which is Squid Game. Um,
I
okay,
have
it
not.
became somewhat of a phenomenon, and I know once it became
Somewhat.
popular, Joe, you're not going to like it. So,
No, because that was the same thing as everyone. Squid Game, Squid
dude,
Game, Squid Game,
it's
and I'm
fucking
like,
great.
so
You got to watch it.
is it about squids?
It
fighting?
is
And
about
they're like,
squids
no,
fighting. Yes.
it's Battle Royale meets Hunger Games, and I'm
No,
like,
it's really cool.
okay.
And the thing that I realized about Squid Game is a good show, like a really good show, a good drama in this case. You don't need to necessarily understand what people are saying. Because yeah, there's subtitles and whatever,
Right,
but the
right.
emotions, if you have good performances, the emotions come across, the actions come across, and because the subtitles, as some people have pointed out, aren't exactly correct in some instances, um, but it's such a great show, and so like I don't know what the word is. I don't want to say like dark, but it's kind of dark. The only sort of weird thing about it to me, at least my only complaint, I guess, was like the sequence where the big wigs show up and they're all like so American caricatures, like, we hate America basically. Is almost what it seemed
Right,
like, but
right.
it's such a great show, and the main guy is such a loser, but you got to root for him. It's that kind of thing that I just enjoy so much. But it had good twists that I didn't see coming, which is always a good thing too. But Rick, you watched it?
Yes, yeah, I liked it. I liked it. I didn't. I had liked it in very close proximity to having watched Alice in Borderland, which is another Netflix series that came out, I believe, just the year before, maybe a few months ago. I don't know. In 2020, I know Alice in Borderland came out, and it has a somewhat similar premise. And I liked what they did in Alice in Borderland better. I liked how they sort of handled the premise a little bit more. In Squid Game, it was so overtly so overtly sort of socio-political, examination here, where Alice in Borderland actually had a bit more sort of mystery and as to what was going on, and I kind of liked going down that path a little bit more. It was also a little bit more colorful. It was more battle royale esque because Alice in Borderland is mostly all younger actors in it and younger cast characters in it, and they're all sort of transported to a sort of abandoned or empty sort of city, and they are forced to sort of compete in these games, these sort of life or death games, which sounds familiar, I'm sure, to Squid Game. And it was one of those ones where I watched Alice in Borderland, and then Squid Game came out a month or two later, and there was all this hype around it. So I'm like, oh, I gotta check out this show, and I watched it, and it just felt maybe just too familiar for me.
That makes sense.
Watching them in close proximity, and I just like the colorfulness and sort of craziness of Alice in Borderland a little bit better, juxtaposed, I guess, against the sort of very stark, very on the nose sort of commentary of Squid Game,
Sure.
I guess.
It's funny. I had the
Cool.
opposite sort of thing that happened. I watched Squid Game, and then a couple of people recommended Alice in Borderland. So I'm like, oh, I'll give this a chance too. I'll give this a try. And I was like, oh, I just watched Squid Game, so I was like, I don't want to watch this right now. So it's funny. Maybe if I'd gone in the other direction, I would have. It would have been different. But I don't know. I don't know what it is about Squid Game, but you're right. It is more overt and on the nose about here's the inequality in people, etc. But it's that's basically the premise. All these sort of down on their luck losers, quote unquote, have a chance at redemption in a way. But I just think that for some reason the depths of emotions that came through, it just the actors were so like so interesting to me, and so I could empathize with their situations. I don't know why. It just hooked me a little bit. And maybe like I said, maybe I would have liked Alice in Borderland better if I'd done that first. I don't know, but I'm definitely going to watch it. It's on my list, of course. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I just something about Squid Game. Maybe I'm just I'm trying to stick it to the man, and it resonated or something with me. I don't know. Maybe I just seen something about Elon Musk
I
right
think they're
before
both
that. And I was
great
like, oh fuck
shows.
that guy. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They're both great shows. I think they're absolutely both great shows. I don't think Squid Game hit me as hard as it did a lot of other folks because I
Yeah.
had just finished watching this other one that had a very similar premise, and I think that's really what sort of dampened it a little bit for me. But yeah, I think it was great. I mean, we binged through Squid Game, and I think in one weekend ourselves.
Yeah, I think it's
Nice.
one of those shows where I don't know that they necessarily needed a second season, but obviously we're going to get one. But it almost felt like it could have been self-contained, but there were a few mysteries that were still unsolved. But yeah, I mean, now that I know they're going to do another season, I guess I'll be watching it, of course. But anyway, who's next? I always lose track now. Was it Joe? Are you next, or is Rick next?
I think Rick, because I just did the.
Oh,
Nevers,
that's right.
so-
And then I did Squid Game, so I guess it's Rick's turn.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Well, I guess one of the other ones I really liked this year on the animated front, but for adults, I liked Invincible.
Yes.
The adaptation of Robert Kirkman's comic and comic of the same name there, and I thought that it was a wonderful adaptation of a very edgy, fascinating, comic book story where that sort of turns traditional superhero tales, and they views them through a different lens, and I really like that about it. I think it translated the comics tone really, really well in both the animation and sort of the the acting and story in the series.
I agree. I love the comic, and I was very happy to see the animated series continue and be able to really closely adapt the tone and everything of the comic. I'm hoping that's one of those that I haven't followed up on, so I don't know if they're making more episodes. I really hope they are, because there's it is a finite series. It went like 118 issues, so it would be lovely to see the whole series presented in this format. So we'll see.
Hey, The Walking Dead ended, so I'm sure they can keep doing Invincible forever too.
Sure.
But yeah, it's on my list, but unfortunately, I haven't had a chance to watch it yet. But I do. I don't know. I'm trying to decide if I have something. If something bothers me about Robert Kirkman, I don't know what it is. But anyway, it's nothing, I guess. But maybe because they've just exploited Walking Dead so much, now I have a bitter taste in my mouth. How Frank Darabont was treated. I'm a Frank Darabont fan, so that's probably what it is. And I know they're totally different. They're totally different. Totally different situations. But I definitely want to watch it. I've heard other people recommend it too, so I'll have to give that a try. But that's good. Yeah, I didn't. I guess we didn't mention What If, which is also animation, which I enjoyed a lot.
There's a lot of great TV.
I feel like there was a lot, almost in some ways, more great, TV than there was great movies. And some, I mean, I didn't get to go out to the theater as much or get as many movies to watch, but I watched a lot of TV, which is why my TV list, I guess, is longer. But a show that we cannot not. That's some terrible English. Cannot not mention.
Okay.
I know that Joe will feel the same way, and maybe Rick will too. I don't know, but and it just came back recently, and I'm freaking loving every minute of it. Of course, we're talking about The Expanse, which I'm so glad is back. It didn't. It's not a show that originated in 2021, which I don't think is a stipulation we were making. But it's just I'm so happy to have it back, but also really disappointed that there's only 6 episodes and that's the end. But
it's a final.
It's living
season.
up to the. It's living up to the hype. And and that's something like, oh, how are they going to do this, and what's going to happen? But it's just so good. I'm so happy to be getting more of the show and enjoying these episodes so much. The last episode was great. So anyway,
yeah, I agree with you. It's just phenomenal having it back. I guess it falls under the don't be sad that it's over, but be happy that it happened. Right. One of those things.
Well, yeah. What was the James S. E. Corey on Twitter? It's like all stories have an ending. That's that's how stories work. So it's like don't be upset.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
be happy that it ended or is going to end. But I hope
And 6 seasons is a pretty
It
good
is.
run. And they've gotten to tell their story.
Well,
the
not
way
just
they
that, but
wanted
6
to as
seasons,
well, so.
like in sort of a rocky way, like starting with Sci-Fi and then getting canceled and then going to Amazon. It's like, it's pretty impressive that it was able to happen at all. But I just dig the show so much, so I'm happy that it's back, even briefly.
Yes.
My only issue with The Expanse is that I'm not caught up with it. I never watched past maybe midway through, I think season 2, I think was about as far as I got with it.
Yeah.
But you know what it was that I watched the first season and then there was this gap of time and then I started the second season and was so confused because I felt like I needed to rewatch the whole first season over again to understand what was going on, because it is such a layered, complicated. There are so many like political machinations going on like all over the place, and there's things being moved all around, sort of, and I feel like I need a refresher course each time a new season started. I never got around to getting I was lost at the beginning of the second season. And so I was like, okay, I just need to maybe read up on some recaps or read up on what happened in the first season again, just to, get my feet wet again. And never got around to doing that. And so I just didn't continue watching it. And it had nothing to do with the quality of the series or the storytelling or anything else. It was just, I'm confused and I feel kind of lost and I feel like I'm not giving this show the attention, the awareness that it deserves. So I should probably take a break, catch up, get acquainted with it, and then start it again, because that's what it deserves.
Well, there you go. Now's a good time to do it because it's coming to an end. So now you can watch the whole thing.
Binge the entire thing, exactly. So
yeah,
I think that's what I will end up doing, to be honest, because my father-in-law and brother-in-law love the book series. Like, they rave about it, and they're constantly trying to get me to read the books. And I've already started the show, and so I'm like, no, I'm just going to watch a show when it's done, and I'll watch through that, and then I'll maybe read the books after that.
Yeah,
but I think that's what I'm going to do.
That's smart. Yeah, I haven't read the books either, so I'll probably go back and I have them. I just haven't gotten around to them, so I'll probably go back and do that after, right after I read Game of Thrones. No. That's like that.
Hey, speaking of books, should we seg over to books?
Well, I just want to throw out a couple more shows that I want to make sure that I get out, especially one in particular. Well, there's a couple. For All Mankind, even though it didn't start in 2021. Yes. It's a fucking kick-ass sci-fi show. If you haven't watched it, it's so well done. It's one of my favorite sci-fi shows. I mean, I feel like we had a lot of good sci-fi the last year or two, especially.
We haven't spoiled,
and I'm enjoying Foundation. I think people should try to watch that.
Yes.
We talked about that a lot, Joe. But the other show that I wanted to mention, that I know people have been talking about, some friends of mine recommended to me, and I hadn't gotten around to it, but I finally dived into it, and I watched all, like, it's 10 episodes, but I only have 6 so far. It's a show called Yellow Jackets.
I've heard about that. Is it?
So the premise is basically these girls, like, championship soccer team crashes in an airplane in the Canadian mountains, and they're stuck there for 19 months. And shit goes weird, and they, there's a lot of stuff going on.
So is it about them?
It's about them trapped, and it also is in modern times too. This is in 1996. There's also a lot of good songs, which I appreciate. But it's 2001 too, so you get some of the characters, the survivors, because not everybody's survived. Spoiler. As their present day selves, but it's got Melanie Linsky in it, and it's got Christina Ricci, and it's got so many great people. The show is just really, really good. I cannot recommend it highly enough. I think it's one of those, you don't know what you're getting into necessarily, but it's like it's totally. I'm hooked. I was hooked in like the first 10 minutes, and that doesn't always happen. And I'm like, wow, what the fuck is going to happen with this thing? And so I couldn't stop watching it, and I watched all the episodes that I had available, which is the first 6. Oh, Juliette Lewis is in it too. Duh. Yeah,
cool.
and she plays a weird kind of druggie, which is unusual, I know, but yeah, but yeah, and the girls who play the younger versions of the characters are also really good. I mean, there's going to be a lot of breakout stars from this thing later, but it's so sort of 90s and sort of modern day, kind of the clash of those kind of things. But it's just to see what happens to these characters, and a lot of stuff goes horribly wrong. when they're on in the mountains. So it's really good. But yeah, I would say if you haven't seen it, it's definitely worth watching. So
Cool. That's on my list to check out
it's
for
worth. And
sure.
then only other one that I wanted to mention that just started on HBO is Station 11, which I'm also one of those things that from the first like 2 minutes, I'm like, wow, this is really interesting, and I was hooked on that too. So if you haven't watched that, it's also really good. I mean, it's weird how all these good things came out towards the end of the year, but the premise of that, I don't know if you're familiar with it, is post-apocalyptic, and it's just they go back and show how everything started and how it goes, and then the characters are older later on. It's just it's super well done. It's got, and the thing is that I found really interesting is that I'm looking at it, I'm like, that actress looks familiar, and it turns out it was Lori Petty. So I was like, wow, I didn't know Lori Petty was in this. That's cool.
Nice.
But Mackenzie
Okay.
Davis is kind of the star, which I think she's awesome. So
Cool.
it's a really good show. If you haven't watched it, it's worth it for sure. So, you have any other shows, Rick? Or are you good?
No, that's pretty much the limit of the ones that really came to mind when talking about our favorites of
Okay.
the
Do you
year.
have a
Yeah.
couple? Do you have a book that you wanted to talk about? Because I only have one or two on my book list. But
I
oh
have
well, there you
one.
go. What
But
is
yeah.
it?
I yeah.
Oh, well, I'll go ahead then. It's actually a Stephen King book. It's Billy Summers. And again, I do like a lot of Stephen King, but I kind of veer towards his stuff that is a little bit different. And this is a more in the crime novel genre. There's no supernatural stuff in this. Although I will say, this isn't really spoilers because you'll have to look for it. There is a really cool, as he's wont to do, there's a very cool nod to one of his previous works in this book, one of his previous horror books, which is
That's
very
weird.
interesting. But it is a crime novel, first and foremost, and it's about a hitman that's hired to do. It's great because again, it leads into my do something different with this, and it is the hitman hired to, and he's wary about taking the job, but he's going to do one more job and then he's going to retire. And then, of course, as what happens with that trope, the wheels come off the wagon at some point. But I mean, Stephen King just, uh, he's an amazing writer, and he handles this trope well, makes his own mark on it, and does something unique with it. And it's a really well written book, and it was one of those that I couldn't put down because it's like, man, I want to know what happens next. And before I knew it, it was like a day later, and I'd finished it already.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think
I highly
Stephen
recommend
King's
it.
going to go places. I think he's got some talent.
I think that kid's
He's got
got some
something. He's
talent.
got
You're right.
something. So
Yeah, yeah.
He's
he's
going
going
to
to
be a
be.
name.
I think
He's going to
so.
be a name
Yeah.
for sure. What about you, Rick? You got any books for the year?
For the most part, I've dove back into comics a lot more than
Nice.
I
Oh, cool.
had been in prior years, and I've started making a regular sort of trip to the comic shop. Once things started opening up a little bit, and I felt okay with it, I started actually heading back, and I've been picking up single issues, as well as trades, collecting some stuff, getting a lot of recommendations from people and at the shop and elsewhere, and. Yeah, I've actually been jumping back into just regular comic book reading, which has been kind of fun. Like I'm
Nice.
sort of rediscovering that, trip. I don't go every Wednesday or anything, but I go, every few weeks, and I'll go and pick up a big stack of whatever, is new in the things that I'm reading, as well as a few, first issues that might be there and all of that. And just kind of fun to have that stack of comics that I just sit and read through whenever I have a couple of minutes free, and just getting back into that world of things like, X-Men and, X-Men and all these other characters, and Spider-Man, all these characters that I had kind of forgotten about the fact that they still have these great adventures and great stories going
Oh
on
yeah.
in comics form outside of what we're, seeing in the movies and TV and things like that.
That's
Yep.
cool. Yeah, I mean, I used to go to Wednesdays for a new comic book day. We'd take the kid and we'd go to the comic book store and stuff. But obviously, we stopped doing that for a while. But I kind of want to get back to it, and I do like the idea of. I mean, I could get comics on my iPad or something if I really wanted to. But I do like the idea of paper comics still. Tangible, analog kind of stuff. So I definitely think I'll start doing that again. But I miss that. But I read quite a few books this year, as it turns out, because it's something to do. But a couple of my favorites, I picked this this one a couple weeks ago on the show, but Chuck Wendig's The Book of Accidents, which you're talking about Stephen King, it's kind of Stephen King-esque in a way. I really enjoyed that a lot. And of course, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir, which is also another cool book that I enjoyed a lot. I like his.
I think that's the second book I read this year. So
yeah, yeah. Project Hail Mary is good, and I enjoyed both of those. They couldn't be more different, obviously, but they're very and there's a bunch of other books, but we're talking about more like favorites. I mean, the Book of Accidents is not it's gothic horror, I guess, but it really was cool, and it stuck with me. And I like his writing in general. I really enjoy his books, and I'm excited for the sequel to Wanderers, which is coming out next year, I think. So
I cannot wait.
That's cool.
So
I just read Wanderers this year, actually, and really, really enjoyed it. Although it hit a bit close to home and things like that, it was really kind of eerie. How dead on it was with a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, then if you like that, then maybe check out Book of Accidents, because it's definitely a cool. I keep saying gothic horror. It's kind of like that. It's
I love his work. Yeah, his Star Wars novels.
Yeah, there you go.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, exactly.
His Star Wars Aftermath novels were absolutely, and honestly, like anyone who read those and didn't guess how the last of the Star Wars sequel trilogy films was going to end wasn't reading his novels closely enough, because he just seeds that sort of ending there. And, I think he was. I think he's phenomenal. So yes, I've been actually had my eye on Book of Accidents as soon as I get a chance to pick up another novel.
So, but that's kind of all the. I mean, there's other books, obviously, but that's kind of all the books that I had. And of course, I've been reading a lot of D&D stuff because I've been playing a lot of D&D. But other than that, I suppose that's it. I mean, we picked a lot of stuff. So
we did.
Do we have any other final sort of things that we forgot, or I feel like that's a lot of stuff. So.
We covered a lot of wide range of
covered a lot of ground. So, we didn't get to music or anything, but that's okay. But
the only thing I'll say is that we got some amazing stuff this year, and thank whatever deity you want that we did, because I don't know about you fellas, but it helped keep me going, which maybe sounds weird that fictional stuff inspired us and kept us going, but I think we all know the effect that fictional things can have on people. So I'm glad for it, and I'm equally glad, looking forward, that already the first half, or even the first quarter of next year, is already stacked up with a lot of really cool stuff heading our way. So good times ahead.
All of it starring Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
It's funny, nobody picked Eternals though. Oh well. Anyway, great. So find the Flickcast at Stitcher and Spotify and Apple Podcasts and all other places you find these things. And you can find Joe and I on the socials at What Joe Writes, and I'm at Chris Yu, and then Instagram, Ulrich Picks. And Rick, where can we find you? At Digital Trends, but what are your socials, man?
Yeah.
Well, on Twitter, I'm at Rick Marshall. I got on early enough to have my name. There you go. But I'm at Rick Marshall on there, and on Instagram, I am that_Rick Marshall.
That's good. Yeah, I got on Twitter early too, and I could have been Chris Ulrich, but I picked Chris Yu for some reason. I don't know why, but it's weird. But anyway, and you can also find our whatever you call it, Patreon. That's it. That's the word I was thinking of. Patreon at patreon.com/TheFlickcast, and of course, find the Flickcast on the socials at TheFlickcast on Instagram and at Twitter, also at TheFlickcast. And that's a lot of stuff. Thanks, guys, for sitting through all this and for your good input. And I think that's about it. What do we think? Anything?
This was fun. What a year! What a year these last 2 years have been.
And on that note, we'll say thanks for listening, and we'll see you next year.